Wasu, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you for inviting me.
I was very inspired by your story when I read about you, and I would love for you to talk about your transition from medicine to healing through art.
It was a gradual process. It just didn't happen overnight. Because when I was thinking of retiring, I was also thinking that I would have to find something to fill my time because being in academia and so busy all the time, I knew that I was not going to be happy just sitting watching TV or watching movies and reading books. I needed to do something more. So I started exploring what were the other things I could do. And finally, I settled on visual art. And as I settled on it, I think I made a very good decision because medicine has taught me that healing is not just physical, but emotional and spiritual as well. So, after decades as a practicing physician, I wanted to continue contributing to the well being, but in a more creative, expressive way. So, art has become my medium to touch hearts, soothe minds, and provide a sense of calm. It feels like a natural extension of my mission to heal, but just with a different tool, a paintbrush instead of a stethoscope now.
That is a really interesting transition. And I started out in science in college. I was always doing art, but I also started out in the science arena. So I actually get transitioning into art. And somehow it just felt like I was contributing more of myself by using
It
both the scientific and the creative sides of who I was.
makes perfect sense to me.
It does. I know it sounds people seem surprised sometimes when they hear about that, but it somehow makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Now, can you share the science behind art's healing properties based on your medical expertise?
sure. And these are the things I have learned as I have started to do art because I started feeling calmer and was able to accept the transition from being a physician to an artist, like accepting this kind of a duality in my life. Um, and that's because art has profound effects on the brain. It can reduce cortisol levels, thereby improving stress and anxiety. Engaging with art stimulates the brain's reward system, releasing dopamine and fostering feelings of joy and connection. For me, this also aligns with neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain to heal and adapt itself following any kind of major changes in life, be it physical or mental. And visual storytelling or simply immersing oneself in creative spaces can spark emotional resilience, which I believe is the cornerstone for healing. So I feel there are so many effects of art on the brain. Not only that, I use like neural inspired patterns and shapes like circles and spirals in my art, which has like a feeling of giving completeness or holistic feeling. And I used carefully applied or carefully chosen pigments actually, like based on the chromotherapy research, like cerulean blue to reduce cortisol levels, specific yellow frequency to stimulate serotonin production. And each subsequent layer, because I use these in glazes, it adds to both physical and visual depth, allowing earlier layers to emerge and interact. So it's really a whole combination of science that I'm beginning to apply to all these art pieces that I feel is very challenging and makes me feel more motivated.
That's fascinating. So, what type of paint are you using? Is it oil paint? You mentioned glazing.
No, I use acrylics and mixed media. And I use at least 10 to 15 layers in each artwork that I do. And sometimes from where I began to where it ends is a totally different concept altogether, also.
So, it's an evolution as you're creating the piece.
Yes, absolutely.
What medium do you use to create your glazes?
I use, thin acrylic paint with either gel medium, or sometimes I will also use flex gel to create like a transparent layer effect. Um, and occasionally glazing medium, but it can just be thinned out water paint also.
That's true. So, how do you choose themes that bridge both medical understanding and artistic expression?
I draw from my medical background to create works that evoke calm, hope, and resilience. And I rely heavily on nature, to be honest with you, because nature is the best healer. But having said that, it depends on the circumstance or the instance for which I'm creating the artwork. Like for inspire, if for instance, if you look at my COVID related art, it was inspired by the collective trauma of the pandemic when the whole world was affected and we were all suffering and trying to find how to heal and deal with this catastrophe. I also use colors and textures and convey themes like renewal for continuity, which reflect the healing process itself. Um, this blend of science and creativity bridges my two worlds of art and medicine. Um, but like I said, nature and soothing, calm colors are always part of my repertoire.
Yes, I interviewed Drew Brophy, who is an artist out in California. And he started out doing all kinds of surf art. He painted surfboards. He started his own company and his own line of pens for painting on
Mm.
surfboards. And then he moved into more the scientific aspect, holistically and spiritually, of imagery, abstract imagery, and started painting mandalas. And so it's very interesting that you are also looking at abstract shapes and spirals, and it sounds like you're touching upon those same harmonic aspects of the visual art that reach deeper.
Yes, and besides the shape and theme and colors and all, and everything comes together to really form the every piece.
Yes, absolutely. So, how does your medical knowledge continue to influence your artistic practice today?
I feel very fortunate and privileged because my medical background does offer a unique lens through which I approach art. Like, for instance, medicine has taught me to observe very deeply, to see beyond what is visible. Like, when you're interviewing a parent, because I am a pediatric gastroenterologist, when I'm interviewing a parent, because most of the times the children can't give a proper history, I'm always observing the child, the interaction with the child between the parent and all that. So you can see many things, that are not obvious or not told to you. And I use this skill to infuse meaning into my work. I understand how colors and environments affect the mood and mental health, which helps me, teaches me to create art that soothes and uplifts. Medicine has honed my ability to notice subtle details, and it translates into how I work. My process in capturing the nuanced emotions and intricate textures. And understanding human emotion, as a physician, you have to understand the struggles, resilience, and healing, and the after effects of it, even after you are healed. Because if you have a condition which leaves a scar, every time you look at it, you're reminded of the trauma you went through, and whenever it exacerbates again, and all that. So that insight influences the stories that my artworks tell. And also my knowledge of neurobiology informs, I use the color, form, and composition with all that. And I don't always follow the principles that are taught in art because I'm a self-taught artist. I haven't taken any formal education in art, but I feel happy doing what I do because my goal is not to just make aesthetically pleasing art, but also psychologically impactful. So I feel that being a doctor, having been a doctor, greatly influences what I create, and how I connect with others. And I look forward to sharing these kinds of healing experiences.
Yes, I think it's really fascinating the way that you're applying the science of neurobiology to making your art. I meditate and I use audio frequency meditation music that will work with different hertz on each side of your head in each
Yes,
ear to
yes,
create a deeper meditative experience. And it sounds like you're familiar with how that works.
yes. And I actually experienced that meditative sound therapy.
Hmm.
Um, Last year in summer, I had gone to Himalayas. And
Wow.
over there, at the retreat I was at, they were practicing sound therapy and giving us sessions. And I can't tell you how beautiful it was, that whole experience. And it was also very healing, just like, any kind of visual arts.
It is. And I feel like I get a much deeper meditation when I use the sound therapy while I'm
Yes,
meditating. So I'll put
absolutely.
links to that in the show notes too. That's what I use is from Centerpoint Institute, but I'm very happy with it. I've been doing that for years, and I really believe in it.
Oh, I would love to explore that. I look forward to getting the link.
Yes, absolutely. Tell us about your mission to transform healthcare spaces through art. What is your vision?
Healthcare spaces often seem very sterile and impersonal, but they are where the people need some hope at, the most of the times. I mean, sometimes the illnesses are transient and short-lived and not a big deal, but sometimes, most of the times, when in the hospitals and all, people who are hospitalized, undergo a lot of trauma and illness that is can be very significant and serious. So my vision is to transform these spaces into sanctuaries of comfort and inspiration through art. My dream is that they should become spaces where art is not integrated as a decoration, but as a therapeutic element, enhancing the healing process. So, give you an example, I have a piece of art at Henry Ford Medical Center where I have yellows and greens and blues. So I have positions the most calming color frequencies at eye level, like blue and green, and have used most and more energizing colors like yellows in transition zones. And the whole experience, distills into viewing an overall composition that provides wayfinding cues that subtly guide movement through the space and gives a very uplifting experience. My other point would be that the art also has the power to humanize clinical environments, reducing anxiety and offering comfort to patients, families, and staff. So when I create pieces inspired by nature, healing, and resilience concepts, these are the universal themes that would resonate in that environment. I want my pieces to provide these moments of peace for all these people, a reminder that beauty and resilience amidst challenges helps you deal with it much better.
Yes, I think it's important. And you can really tell when you enter a medical space when there are pieces there that have been really thoughtfully placed. And it gives you a sense of serene calmness because
Yes.
people are coming in there. Everybody's got a different story. They've all got a whole universe going on in their mind of what they're going through, or they're worried about a family member. And quite often, the right piece of art can go a very long way to taking you out of that stress, whether you are aware of it or not.
I agree with you. I think you hit the nail on the head.
What process for acquiring installation commissions do you use? And how do you select and collaborate with charities through your art?
So let me address each of them differently.
Yes.
For for commissions, I will collaborate with the client and listen to their needs and design artworks. Like I will create some miniature pieces, to show them and share whether I'm portraying the vision they want to see or not. But eventually, the what transpires in the end may be somewhat different than what I had done with them, but I need to have that freedom, to be able to create something that will resonate with them, but also expresses my interpretation of what they needed. So the space and in which it is going to be located, and whether if it's for a corporation or something, whether it's they have a mission or something, or it's just for a personal space for whatever reason they wanted to create it. And depending on that, I will create on the theme they want, like nature, tranquility. Somebody wanted to create a piece for their parents in their retirement, and they were from India, and their interests were reading books and music and cardiology, cardiologist retiring. So I created a unique piece, to show all that, and they loved it. So it's very challenging and inspiring to do these kinds of works. For charities, I choose causes that align with my values, such as mental health, environmental protection, empowering women, and healthcare, of course, and even children with autism. And by donating a portion of the proceeds from the sales of my artwork to the, charity that the client chooses, I feel that they would also feel that they are not just beautifying their space, but they're also contributing towards the community and something for the greater good, that it makes an impact in the world. So I feel, it's kind of a personal approach in every situation. And I, depending on the space it is designed for, I try to do the best I can in the circumstance.
Now, how do you find your commissions and your charities? Like, how do you connect with each other? Do you use your website? Is it word of mouth? Do you have a representative to help you make these connections?
It is word of mouth, but the charities, I have them listed on my website also, so they can go to the to the link and check out what resonates with them. But sometimes it can be spontaneous also. Like, I am in LA right now, and with the wildfire going on, I have decided to donate 100% of the proceeds of the sales for next 10 days to these charities that are helping support the victims of, those who have lost everything or whatever they are going through. So although I vet them out before I connect with them, but I won't mind, having more causes to support, especially women's empowerment is very important to me.
How do you said you vet them out before you proceed. How do you go to the next step where you can be certain if you are speaking to somebody, say, across the country or in another country, that they are who they say they are? I myself had an experience with someone who tried to scam me,
Yeah.
and it made me shy away from working directly with clients if I wasn't meeting them in person. I only, when I work remotely, I only go through my website as a shopping cart situation as far as payments and things like that. So how do you know when it's when you're comfortable taking it to the next level with a client or, commission, charity?
No, I really do thorough vetting. And I have a friend who is very well versed because he himself has a charity called Immerman's Angels. So he knows many of these people personally. As far as the autism is concerned, Ted Lindsay Foundation is a local charity in Michigan. And I have been to their fundraisers and I have donated paintings to them. So them I know personally. But the others, like No Shame on You, which is uplifting women and children in southern Sudan and all. No, I have met with the president of the organizations. I see what's going on their website and through LinkedIn and everything, what they are doing. And the same on No Shame on You. They invited me to their fundraiser last year in Chicago, and they raised $100,000, and I donated a painting for the raffle, and I was there. So I do my homework before I decide that our causes are mutually beneficial, that I'm helping them and my mission is being fulfilled. But that's the very important question you asked because of your experience, and it's very possible because these days scammers look so authentic that it's very difficult sometimes to figure out between what is real, which is versus what is a fraud.
It's true, and I think it's going to become even more difficult with the
Yes.
development of AI. And I'm a proponent of AI for its proper use, especially for assisting with research and when I research for paintings and in the proper usage. But I think it's important to be careful and have ways to know who you're speaking with and to be aware of how to avoid scammers. I do have a couple of episodes about that, which I will link to in the show notes. And it
Yeah.
sounds like you've had great success with charities and that it's a two-way street. It sounds like you reach out to them and connect with them, and then they are also now aware of you and reaching out to you as well.
Yes. And you're very right about the AI. I think it has, if it used positively, it can be such a great tool and cut down on a lot of figuring out you have to do with research and all that, like which we previously had to do manually. I mean, I have written a lot of medical papers, so I know what it is like to research things, but it can be such a helpful tool. But it can be dangerous in the hands of wrong people.
Yes, yes, it can. Tell me about the role that your cultural heritage played in developing your artistic style.
Um, I feel extremely good about my Indian heritage because it's really a wellspring of inspiration. It connects me to the vibrant colors, intricate patterns, and profound symbolism. Themes like spirituality, interconnectedness, and reverence of nature, they influence my work very deeply. My heritage also inspires me to tell stories of the resilience and identity, which align beautifully with my mission of healing. And like vivid colors and patterns, we have so many festivals where colors and lights and everything, like Festival of Lights and Festival of Colors, and Indian paintings are quite often very intricate depending on what style they are done in. Very great details. Although I'm moving away from too much detail into more abstraction, but it does influence me quite a bit because if I am creating things like for soothing, occasionally I will do mandalas and those kinds of things that require a lot of intricate work also. And the symbolism, the recurring symbols in my work are circular forms for continuity and hexagonal patterns for structure and how they get back to the cultural and personal meanings. I mean, all those things are extremely important to blend both the worlds. I don't know if you're familiar with the Indian demigod Ganesha.
Yes.
He has the elephant head and the body of a human.
Yes, tell me.
So, so a couple of years ago, I tried to make paintings of him from the eyes of abstractionists and expressionists. Like I thought in my head, how would Picasso do it, or how George Braque or um, Mondrian. So I created a series of paintings as if, those guys were thinking in their head about doing it. So it was challenging and very interesting for me to explore that avenue.
That is interesting. I did a tribute painting to George Braque as well. And I think that it's helpful, no matter what kind of or style of painting that an artist has an affinity for, to explore the areas of other artists and how they approach their work, because I think it enriches whatever you're doing and gives you additional perspectives.
Absolutely.
So, Wasu, from CDC journal covers to hospital installations, what has been your most impactful artistic contribution?
I'm so glad you asked me that. For an artist, every artwork is dear to her, to me, because it's a piece of me. I'm putting in such a lot emotionally into it. But my CDC journal cover, my COVID inspired piece, resonated nationally. First, it was made in response to a call by Washington Post, and it was considered top 20 in the nation. But my greatest thrill came when CDC approached me saying they wanted to use that particular artwork after having gone through thousands of COVID related art and chose that. That was one of the most thrilling moments for me. It symbolized the resilience and the shared struggle of the whole world, and it's entitled The World United, where I show a hand and a fist, and it's trying to grab COVID-19 virus, where while still in the atmosphere, quite a few are being still released and they are faded in the background. And on the hand, I have stamps of about 70 different nations because that's all I could incorporate in that space. So I was trying to represent the whole world trying to fight it. So that thing was, I don't know how I thought of it, but it just came to me that this is what I should do. And that's what I did. Another big painting that I have in a conference room at corporate headquarters of NeilMed Pharmaceuticals is called Spaces of Our Minds. And this one is a 48 by 48 inches artwork. And this also has many, many layers, but it's in subtle colors with some tallow blue, some iron oxide, yellows and grays and whites, and like it has drips and patterns and everything. But it really how we compartmentalize things in our minds and how we can push some things back and let other things come forward. But if something happens, how in a flash that memory floods back. And so that kind of a theme, I also consider one of my very good pieces. Um, and I mean, I could go on and on, but I think these two come specifically to mind when you ask me that question.
With all of your success doing your work and getting it out into the world and getting it into company locations and private homes and organizations for charities, how, as a self taught artist, most of us are self taught in the area of the business aspect. So, how do you figure out where your pricing should be and establish that? And uh, do you have to negotiate that with your commissions? How do you go about that business aspect of selling your work? Because it sounds like you're quite successful in selling the pieces that you make.
Well, yes, but we all need more success than what we get. um, I usually have a fixed price, and I have based it on the size of the artwork and the complexity in it. Like if it's on paper, many of my small pieces are on paper, then they are cheaper than the ones on wood or canvas, even if they are the same size. And the bigger ones, I don't consider myself a top level artist yet, so I don't think so. I have to be reasonable with how I price my
I
artwork, but
think we all
depending,
struggle with that, where we consider ourselves.
yeah, yeah. And I modesty and humility is something in my culture, so um I embrace it, the way I am, and I'm not usually a loudmouth who brags and talks about herself all the time. I was always taught it's for people to talk about you and not for you to talk about yourself. But in this day and time, it sounds like I have to evolve and make my presence felt, otherwise people are not going to discover me. And that's why I have presence on social media and I share things about my process or what I'm creating and things like that. And basically, things are from word of mouth. And I have been fortunate enough to have at least one solo show every year. So the word gets out, and I take part in a lot of group exhibitions where I belong to several local art clubs and societies. So through them, I get to expose myself by participating in the exhibitions. And I have been on board of a couple of them, and I try and do work in the background, like arranging exhibits or finding venues and speakers and things like that. So I think one tries to work at doing things and slowly making inroads into making your presence felt while you keep on doing what you enjoy doing.
Yes, definitely. And how often would you say that you practice your art, like on a given week? I'm sure it varies depending on what else is going on, but with your other pursuits involving the charity aspects of your practice, how do you break up your time?
The business of art is the hardest to master. And I usually need a block of time to work because I just can't work for 10-15 minutes and come back to it again after doing the chore. So I give myself like from noon to 4 to 5 o'clock on the days that I paint. I will do it for 4 to 5 hour blocks and with little interruption. I have a dedicated area which I call my studio, and I'm usually not bothered over there because now it's only me and my husband, and he enjoys playing golf, so he's out while I'm painting. So we have we are both lost in our own worlds, and I get dedicated chunk of time to do my work, and I work on actually 4 or 5 paintings at a time because so while one is drying, I can add another layer to a different one or think about what to do with a different one. So that's how I practice.
That's wonderful. I do the same thing. I'm not retired yet, but when I paint, I find that the 4-ish block of hours is about right for me. I don't even start if I don't have at least an hour. But when I do start, I find that after about 4 hours, sometimes a little longer, but if I don't have anything set, it's like a timer goes off in my head and I just know I'm done. So that
Yes,
block is important.
yes. And also to keep busy even while you're doing it, I listen to audiobooks. I mean, not always music, but I'll listen to because I belong to a couple of book clubs also, and I enjoy listening to the audiobooks while I'm painting also.
Yep, me too. I'm always doing something else, whether it's something on the television or an audiobook or a podcast or music. Sometimes it depends on my mood, but my paintings are a solo practice. And so I will use something, usually music or an audiobook to keep me company. And it seems
Yes,
to enrich what I'm doing, especially the music. It can really influence your art and help you kind of dig down, I think, into your feelings.
yes, it can. I totally agree with you. And all those little distractions for us are also important to just keep our minds moving and soothed while we are creating.
Yes. Well, Sue, it's such a privilege and a pleasure to speak with you and to meet you over Zoom and learn more about your fascinating work. I'm going to look forward to see what you do in the future and all of these layers, these psychological and emotional and healing layers. There's a spiritual aspect to what you do, and it's absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for your time coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Caroline. And I just wanted to tell you that your podcast is for artists, and it's not that they need any instruction or anything from me, but I did create a downloadable magnet for them, which is called, Empowering Vibes for Artists, where I just talk about a few principles in case your mood is down and you don't feel empowered at times to what to do.
I would love to share that. If you send me the link to it, I would be happy to put that on the show notes or send the PDF, whatever, however you want to do it. We'll link to that.
Yeah, I
And
will.
that is wonderful. Thank you for that. I'm sure it will continue to inspire as you do with through your art and through who you are. It shows in your eyes and the light in your soul.
Thank
And
you.
you're welcome. I would love to have you wrap us up based on your experience. What advice would you give medical professionals considering a creative career pivot?
Um, I personally feel that probably this advice is for anybody who is changing a career, not just for medical people, but one must encourage and empower others by sharing the lessons that you have learned so far on your journey. So, like, this is addressed to others, so they have to trust their skills. And medical training provides us with transferable skills, especially attention to detail, empathy, and discipline, which are invaluable in the creative field such as arts. Secondly, trust the process. Transitioning from science to creativity can feel very daunting, but it's very liberating and rewarding in the end. You have to start small, but the dream really big because you can't just stop dreaming. Take incremental steps. Don't try to be a superstar overnight. It doesn't happen to anybody. Experimenting with creativity alongside medical works. If you're thinking, you may start wanting to take some lessons if you have never been exposed to art as you're thinking about it, and gradually scaling it to a more fulfilling career like I did. And use purpose over perfection. That embracing my passion doesn't mean abandoning my medical identity, but rather I'm enriching it and being enriched by who I was. So, creativity is a continuation of the healing mission for me and building a community. Like, I encourage connecting with other creatives for support and inspiration, as transitioning can sometimes be very isolating. You can feel depressed as you're going through this career change or not knowing where to go. And lastly, if you have a passion, pursue it unapologetically. Just be very passionate about it, because creativity by itself is a form of healing, not just for others, but for yourself too. And as medical people, I feel that we bring a unique perspective, and the world needs us to do that so that it's a better place.